People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees. They don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Welcome once again to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, of course, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. We point you there because it's really a good starting point when it comes to starting that big conversation about your retirement. How's it going to work? Who's going to help me? What do I need? And that's really why we have this show as well. And Charisse is here. How are you doing today? I know how you're doing today.
I'm doing so much better as of today.
Okay.
And I'm still breathing a little hard because my belly's still a little distended. But
Charisse didn't have a baby. No, she went on top of a mountain, and we've been hearing about your training for 90219.
No,
what is
29029 Everesting.
Yeah, I'm always
Everesting.
doing zip codes here. Okay, so
yes.
Everest is 29,000 feet, and you went up a mountain enough times to equal Mount Everest. Where did this happen? And tell me a little bit about it.
In this beautiful, cutest town called Mont Tremblant in Canada. 36-hour endurance challenge. It was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And, I talk about leadership and I talk about mindset. And I also talk about grit, because mindset and grit are two different things, Randy. And it was really probably the first time I pulled grit out of my arsenal.
Okay.
And you know what I'm going to do? I posted something on Facebook. I'm going to read it because there's too much to say. And this was just an easy way for everyone to understand where I was. So if you don't mind, give me like 2 minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah. And you can check it out on the Facebook page too. I almost quit 3 times. My body betrayed me, feet shredded, calves and Achilles about to give out. My herniated disc and hip on fire. And then the storm hit, rain, wind, lightning. By 1:30 a.m., I was sleepless, dehydrated, and convinced I wouldn't finish, which was true, by the way. You have to hike through the night or it's really hard to finish this race. I finally shut my eyes at 4:30 and woke at 6:30. I decided to go for it. After I decided I was going to quit at that point, I decided to go for it. And here's what happened when I made that decision. The pain vanished. My body moved like I knew exactly what I was doing at a pace I've never experienced before. My mindset will get you started, but what got me across the finish line was grit. And you don't know what grit is until you've scraped every ounce of yourself off the mountain. It was the love of my friends, the support of my coach, Brent, the incredible community, and the thought of not finishing and telling my kids I didn't finish, telling my buddy Thomas I didn't finish, and Becky, my director of operations, she would have never let me live it down. In the moment, I had to go 10 minutes faster every lap, which was almost 2 miles, making up a full 30 minutes. At that point, I was broken. Dead last, 3 minutes to spare, and I crossed that line. When you dig deep and refuse to quit, even when nothing remains, you'll discover you're stronger than you ever imagined.
And there you were with your red hat that you get at the end of it if you finish in 36 hours. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a big deal. Now, we talk on this show, and we can relate all of this to preparation. We talk about preparing for retirement. And you and I have talked about you've trained a lot, and you've done this before. And preparation in Florida doesn't prepare you for being on a mountain that has a 20 and a 30 and a 40% grade. So you were encountering stuff that you had not trained for because there was nothing you could do, and your body was not ready for that. And this is something that you and I talk about with retirement. We can prepare our money all we want, but something's going to come our way, and we may not be ready for it. And you got to have some help. And you got to have some grit, don't you?
You do. And such a great analogy. Thank you, Randy. because people are prepping for retirement and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're putting your heads down. Some of you are clipping coupons. Maybe you're not buying the fanciest car. You're saving in that 401k. You're taking your one trip. You're not overindulging for that day that you can retire, hoping you've saved enough. And then you get to retirement and there's all these moving parts and there's these potential hazards that you don't know about, that we know about, that most people encounter because they didn't have somebody walk them through it. And there's always surprises as health or it's kids or something else like that. So you kind of bob and weave. So even in retirement, you got to have some mindset because things are going to change and you got to be mentally ready for it, right? But sometimes you got to dig down and really pull out that grit because life-changing events can happen. But if you really prep just enough as you're getting ready for retirement and you start working with somebody that actually understands, and I wouldn't say a retirement coach, but like I had a coach which helped me and it helped me through when I was on that mountain. He helped me through that mountain. He took stuff off of me. He's like, keep going. You got this time going. You know, that's what we do here at Zinnia Wealth. You've already gone up the mountain. Now you're coming down this mountain, right? Mm-hmm. And there's going to be these things. I'm going to tell you some things. I'm going to coach you here. I'm like, no, we don't want to do that right now because of this provision or this tax rule, or maybe taxes go up or go down, or Social Security is changing. And that's what it's all about. And just trusting the person who's in front of you, who is helping you through this phase of your life, just like I trusted my coach and my friends as I'm going up this mountain, and I finished. And I have so many memories from it and complete joy, even though I can't breathe very well.
But you know, when somebody goes into retirement and they say, I'm worried, I'm scared, I don't know if I'm ready, I don't know if my money's ready. I mean, Sharice, these are the things, the emotions that you had when you were on the mountain. I trained, I thought I was ready for this, and now something's been thrown my way. Yep. It was bad weather, it was your legs, it was your breathing, it was your stomach said, don't want this anymore, up it comes. All of that kind of stuff happens. Yeah. And if somebody's sitting in front of you, I think there is a real advantage to having somebody on the other side of the table that understands markets that go down by 50%. You've been through it. Mm-hmm. Markets that do what we had during COVID, you've been through it. And you've seen hundreds of people retire and come out of retirement, want to go back to work, not want to go back to work, and all the different scenarios that people experience. You've been there. And I think that that's a real advantage for the people you're sitting with.
I've been there doing this mountain with my clients for 20 years. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, it's very similar for most people, and the same hazards are still there. And then there's always new hazards. I mean, how many hazards have, we had COVID, and then the economy changed, and then the interest rates changed, which was a benefit for us, right?
Inflation at 9%. Who saw that?
Right.
Yeah.
And so these hazards come, and just knowing how to bob and weave as they come and trusting your trusted partner, AKA your fiduciary advisory firm, is going to keep you in control. It's going to keep you making better decisions. It's going to keep you from quitting. And when I say quitting your advisor, because anybody can quit us. If I'm not doing my job, I deserve to be fired. If I'm not communicating, if I'm not bobbing and weaving, if I'm not training my advisors right, if I'm not coaching up my staff, if I'm not coaching up my clients when they come in and they do those reviews and I'm like, okay, we're going to do this and this and that. I mean, just the other day, I had somebody come in, we retweaked their entire plan. He's like, wow, Sharice, he's like, this is great, right? And a year ago, I didn't think we'd have to do that. Mm-hmm. So being able to you can't see the future, you can't predict the future, but I can see some things based on what I've seen over the last 20 years. And if I see you going down that same route as maybe 10 other clients did, I'm like, this was my experience. So this is what we need to do now.
Well, we talk about getting on a plane. I love the idea when I walk onto a plane and I look and that pilot's got some gray hair and a whole lot of stripes. And that means he or she has been through it. I want a financial Navy SEAL on the other side of the table, and I think that's what Sharice is for you.
Ooh, I like that. My dad would have loved that.
There you go. So give us a call. Let's sit down and talk about your retirement with somebody who's been through it in more ways than one, financially speaking and life speaking too, because we all go through it. We have our ups and downs financially and otherwise, and we want to have somebody who we can relate to.
And let me repeat it. I'm your financial Navy SEAL.
Okay.
I love it.
Here's our number. It's 833-368-3680 to sit down with Sharice and talk about your retirement. Let's get the papers out on the table and really start to work on it. You can find us online at zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a button there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's exactly what it is. It's a free meeting, no obligation, no cost there to sit down and talk about what you want to do. What are your concerns about retirement? Let's get them out on the table. So I think this is a good segue here because I have an interview that I listened to not long ago. The person was from Vanguard. Her name is Fiona Gregg, and she is the head of investment research at Vanguard. So she's the one who's supposed to be inside our heads, okay? She knows what we're thinking. And she made this comment. I thought it was worth talking about. Retirement is the most financially complex time of our lives. And I thought, yeah, in many ways, I think she's probably right. That's why there's so much uncertainty and nervousness about all this. What do you think of that quote, Sharice?
Well, it's not so much that it's complex. It's just different. And so when something's different or we're not used to it or we're not good at it or we haven't experienced it, we're going to think it's pretty complex, right? Because think about it. You're working, you're collecting this paycheck, and it just shows up in your bank account every 2 weeks, and you're putting money in your savings and you're putting money in your 401k, and it's growing. And now you retire, you turn in the keys to retirement, you walk out the double door, you collect your last paycheck, and now you're like, okay, I need paychecks. So you're just getting your paychecks differently. It's not complex. We just have to have an income check plan, right? So your checks are going to come from Social Security now, and that's probably not going to be enough. So then maybe you're going to need a pension check. And so those are going to be put into your bank account. But then we got to start figuring out other sources of income checks that can be deposited into your bank account, because most people, Randy, are used to the 60-40 portfolio, and we're just going to take withdrawals, and that's not a check plan. So that's just one of the complexities that people think that are complex, but really it's more simple. And I think if more people sat down with an advisory firm that understood the check payout phase of life, this is called the withdrawal phase of life, the decumulation phase of life, I think it would be less complex. But when you walk into a big bank or brokerage firm, Randy, and you're like, okay, here's my $1 million. And they're like, okay, we're going to average you 7%. It's going to double over 10 years. You're just like, okay, great. And this is what you've always heard, that you need more. You need to be held a little tighter, a little closer. You need to be educated. You need to learn, like, hey, there's more to it than just that. And by the way, we might not turn on your Social Security just yet. Maybe one spouse does, one spouse doesn't. Maybe we turn on this other income check through another contractual guarantee. Maybe we pull in this dividend portfolio. Maybe we take away all those awful mutual funds you have and we put them all into exchange traded funds. Maybe we can lower your fees. So there's all these things that we have to have a conversation about, because it is so different when you enter retirement. And actually, it's a first time. It is probably most people's first time that you get the opportunity to go to all these different classes out there and learn about how, these advisors do your money. It is a stomping ground for you to take advantage of, to learn about all these cool things out there. And then you get to finally pick, because think, when you're working, you don't really have a financial advisor. Some people do, maybe 10% out of 100% out there. But you don't have a financial advisor. You don't have somebody walking you through things and coaching you and teaching you. So this is a fun phase of life. So it can be less complex if you just do a little homework and you just kind of dial in a little bit and you go investigate 3 advisory firms, and then you pick the one that just makes the right kind of sense.
In your life, when you're going to go do something that you've never done before, you want to get a little advice in any way, shape, or form. I mean, think about your money right now. I mean, taxes are April 15th, and what comes out of your check. Now it's something called RMDs and capital gains. Who did that? I bought a term policy for my kids. If I die, now I have to put an estate plan together with wills and trust. It's not complex. It's just different. And we would like to help you through the different. Give us a call. Let's sit down and talk through your retirement. Get your concerns and questions out on the table. Let's get it going. Here's our number. Here's our website. We'll do this at no obligation, no cost. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680 or zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. And there's a button there that says complimentary retirement consultation. Click on that. You'll be on your way. All right. Somebody wrote into the Market Watch advice column, and this guy seems to have done everything right. He's 62 years old. He's married. He started saving when he was 23. Congratulations. He has an emergency fund. He has a 401k. He has real estate holdings, and he has sold his business. And if you add all that up, it's $4 million. So you think, this guy's done it. He has won the retirement race. So he's asking about other things, IRA conversions and annuities, and when should I claim my Social Security? All good questions. But the person who wrote back to him said this: you're missing the obvious. You should be thinking about tax planning. So this is something that you and I talk about a lot, is people come in and all they're thinking about is making that balance go up and beating the market and that kind of thing. But at the same time, there's a lot of really important topics and things we have to talk about with tax planning, because that can put money in your pocket too, can it?
Absolutely. And it just reminds me of somebody who I sat with probably about a month ago. They sold their business. They had a lot of money coming in from that business, and they had to pay over $500,000 to Uncle Sam. He comes into us a day late, and he's like, I knew you'd do this tax planning, but, I just put it off. I was okay with it. And after I kind of told him what we did, he's like, that $1 million in taxes I wrote to the IRS, I could have doubled and tripled and left it in my estate by just using one of your tax strategies, and I wouldn't have to pay taxes on that business I sold. I went, yes. He's like, you've said it. I've heard your commercials. He's like, it's just I didn't have time, and I'm struggling all this, and I was ready to retire, and I just come in and see you afterwards. I went, well, I could have put millions more in your pocket. And he was like, okay. He's like, what other mistakes am I making? And I said, well, you have $1 million in a CD. I was like, why are you paying the capital gains on that? Do you need that? Because he also had cash. He went, no. I was like, well, why don't we put that more into a tax deferral strategy? It's like a CD. It's just tax deferred now. And he went, so I won't have to pay that $8,000 on that 4% that I made on the $1 million. I'm like, right. You do not have to pay it. And if you don't need the money, then you'll never have to pay it, right? Beneficiaries get to deal with that problem. He went, okay. And then he's like, well, what about my IRAs and my 401ks? And I said, that's another conversation. What are your goals? Because you have all this income coming in, and those 401ks and IRAs, and I'll just give you an example. I won't tell you exactly how much they had, but let's say it was $1 million. I said, if you're going to continue to risk this money and keep it risky, then it's likely to double in 10 years, right? Depending on what happens with the market, and then in triple and in quadruple. And I'm like, you're only in your late 50s. And when you turn 75, you're going to have to take starting somewhere close to 4% from that. And you're forced to do that. He's like, I don't need that though. I was like, then we need to start the Roth conversion strategy. And here's why. And we talked about that. And he was so excited about it. He's like, and we showed him our tax plan. He went, I've never seen anything like this. Does anybody else do this? I'm like, I don't think so. And he also found out he had these brokerage accounts in the wrong investments. And I said, if we just move these mutual fund investments over to exchange traded funds, now you don't have these phantom gains. You won't have these extra surprise taxes. And then they'll make the same amount of money on average. They kind of do the same thing. It's just, it's a tax advantage kind of strategy. He went, I didn't know that either. So, it's bobbing and weaving, and it's just maneuvering the asset allocation, right? And getting a little creative.
It's interesting that he said, I heard you talk about it, but I just didn't have the time. I just let it go. That's amazing to me, because if we were to say on the radio, we have an investment or we have a stock that could probably make you $200,000 or $300,000, you would think people would just jump. They would make time for that. But when you say, I've got a tax strategy that could save you $200,000 to $300,000, and nobody, moves on that. Taxes just, I guess, aren't sexy enough. But I think the savings are sexy. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's amazing if you put your head down and do a little bit of work like you did your entire life, but we're going to do it for maybe the first 5 years of retirement or 10 years, depending how we deploy the program. it's amazing the hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars you'll save in taxes to you and your surviving spouse if you live 30 years in retirement. And then that's also included the legacy that gets passed on to your heirs. And it's incredible to see. I love showing it. It's my most favorite thing to do in the whole entire world are these tax plans. My most favorite thing used to be the income plans. They still are. We still do them. That's number one. The second appointment is the tax plan. And people are like, jaw dropping, like, why didn't I know this before? Like, where did you get this software, Sharice? I pay a lot for it.
Yeah, that's so common where people will come to someone like you and you show them this and they say, why is my guy not talking about this? And it's probably because, A, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the software, they don't have the connections, they don't have the partners, and they're more focused on, I mean, at the bottom, a lot of web pages or in a commercial, it'll say, you know, if you want tax information, you have to go to a tax professional. So check this out. Well, you know what? I get that. But at the same time, you should be talking about this and doing the numbers with your financial advisor. And if you're not, Sharice, they're missing a big part of retirement planning.
And they are. And this is why we do the free consultation for the income plan and the tax plan, because if you see it and then you decide not to go down that route, you can never be upset with yourself. You can never blame it on somebody. You can never say 10 years from now, I wish I would have seen that, or I wish I would have planned it, because then you were prudent. You did your work and you're like, forget it. I don't need to do it. Right. So we do encourage people to use that resource. It's here. It's free.
Well, and it's not just IRA to Roth conversions. I mean, you and I have talked about, this is a great time of year to talk about tax loss harvesting. You probably had some gains this year. The stock market has done rather well. Do you have something that you can offset there?
Yes.
Tax-favored kind of investments. I mean, annuities are something that are tax-favored. Municipal bonds are tax-favored. These, if you're not looking at these things, Sharice, how are you having a tax plan within your retirement plan?
Right. And you're not. And I truly believe, like, I am that advisor that says there is no investment plan, there is no income plan without the tax plan first. That is insane to me for me to create an income plan for you and an investment plan without doing the tax plan first. And there's people, I've heard people out there like, oh, how can an advisor do it all? I'm not doing it all. I'm doing smart. I'm doing my job. I'm making sure the right tax dollars are in the right tax buckets that are in the right type of investments that work for that tax strategy. And I'm like the Mythbuster, like, your advisor better know tax planning, because they probably are not doing you justice. And if you're trying to squeak by, that's fine. But if you're trying to squeeze the juice out of Uncle Sam, then you come to us.
And this is one of the places that we talk about regularly, how people try to do their investments and their retirement planning themselves. This is one of the things that they usually miss. I mean, there's 100,000 pages in the tax code, and I don't know all of them. I don't know hardly any of them. And Sharice, I know you don't know all of them either, but you have access to it. You have access to people who help with it, and it has to be a part of your retirement planning. Give us a call. Let's sit down and talk about it. If it's all about investments and that's all your financial advisor is talking about, there is an aspect of this that they're missing. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. Let's get an appointment and sit down and talk through it. You can use our website too, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. Click on that. You'll be able to pick a day and a time, and we would love to have the opportunity to talk you through it. All right, we've talked about some of these in the past. We're going to talk about a lot of these different rules about retirement. When people get into retirement, if they don't have any help, what do? They go to Google and they say, what should I do about retirement? And this is the kind of stuff that pops up. And this article that I'm looking at says, these are 7 retirement rules you can break with no problem. And the first one, Sharice, is the 4% rule. We've talked about this so many times. That was developed in the 90s when the market was going up 7, 8%, even more per year. So if people figured, hey, if I take 4% of my money and the market's going up 7, I'll never run out of money. Well, that math worked there. Does it still work?
So it depends on what income is coming in and how much you need going out, right? So it has a big picture, like, what is our fixed income? Do we have Social Security, pension, or do you just have Social Security, and how much do we have saved? So I'll give you a great example, because I just sat down with a client of mine who's been a client of mine for 5 years now. And he needs more money in the short term, the next couple of years, than ever expected, because there's some stuff hitting the fan, right, with his family. So on 3 of his accounts, 2 of them, we are following the 10% rule. We're following the 10% rule, and we're still not going to break into his principal, because his goal is not to break in the principal, but he knows we got to do this. I was like, because of our returns we've had and based on how this investment is projected to look over the next couple of years, we can pull 10% without biting the principal, and it's going to continue to grow, right? Now, if the market crashes, then we're still not going to bite into the principal. It's just not going to grow, right? And then there's one account we're actually taking 5% from for a couple of years. And then in 2 years, we're going to change the plan back to where we had it. So the 4% rule was created in the 90s. And that was when the Dow Jones had grown over 1,000% from 1980s to 2000. And this 4% rule said, hey, if you don't take more than 4% from your portfolio, you will never run out of money. But that didn't happen to so many people, right? And some people didn't run out of money, but they found themselves living on less income because of what happened during the crash of 2000 and 2008. 2 big worldwide crashes. One took 33 months total bottom out crash, and the other one took 18 months, but it crippled people's accounts. They were following the 4% rule and still taking money out when the market was going down for 33 months, which is a big no-no. No, I'm going to slap your hand. You cannot do that. You cannot pull money out of your account when the market goes down like that. You have to have another bucket that never went down, because it cripples your portfolio. You can never make that money back. And then you're taking a higher percentage. And now you're finding yourself, your $1 million is now 500,000, and it never gets back to even. Now you're more conservative. And now you're just like, I'm about to run out of money if I don't take less now. So the 4% rule is a myth, and it was created during a time that was just amazing, right? So a lot of people do follow that rule, and they'll stick to that rule, and they very well could do very well on that rule, the 4% rule. It really depends on the inflation rate, how high it goes up, the interest rate environment, and it depends on the crashes and how fast they come and how fast they recover. So there's so many hazards that are really pending on that 4% rule. And that is why it's important you work with a financial advisor that understands that we're bobbing and weaving with these percentages based on a lot of bumps that can come our way, positive and or negative.
You know, to me, it's just the math. I don't like math. And you live in math.
Yes.
I don't like math. You know, if I have $1 million and I need 4% and that's $40,000, that's easy math. But then if my money goes down to $767,000, then I got to trigger, well, what's 4% of that? Well, that's not enough. Now I need more. And now I got 6%, 7%. It's just ridiculous, the math. I just want to look at you, Charisse, and say, Charisse, I need $7,000 a month to do my retirement. I'm going to get $3,000 from Social Security. Help me get $4,000 from my investments. I'm a happy boy. That seems easier, Charisse.
Yes, it does. It does. And another example, a client who's been of mine for a while said, Charisse, we underestimated our needs. I know we said $7,000 a month, but it's $9,000 a month. So as a financial advisor, you're like, I hope I did this plan conservatively, and everything I do is pessimistic. And thank God that when we did that, I said, okay, for how many years do you need that much? And we laid out how many years, and then they said they could backtrack 7. But it was nice to be able to do that because we don't overfluff things, and we're realistic. All the advisors here, we're going to be honest with you. Be like, hey, you're screwed and you're going to run out of money if you don't make a change, or hey, we're looking good, but these are some things we need to add in and adjust, and we need to adjust it in year 2 or year 5, that kind of thing.
Build in a little wiggle room.
Yep.
You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers. We're going through this list here, 7 retirement rules. These are some of these things you've heard over and over again that are okay to break. The next one is everybody's scared of running out of money. So what you should do in retirement is spend as little as possible. Become a miser, clip coupons.
No.
You got to make your money last, so don't spend it. Not
No.
good. Come on. We want you to spend your money and enjoy yourself.
You know, when I first got into this industry, Randy, I heard that over and over and over again. Think 20 years ago, right? When I was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I'm sitting with advisors, I'm being trained. And they were saying, well, we don't want them to pull too much from these accounts, Charisse, because then we don't make as much. And I'm like, okay, so it's about us. It's about us. It's about the client. It's about us.
There you go.
I'm telling you, no joke. That was my conversation and my training. Like, it's embarrassing. I've actually never said it on radio, so I feel bad even saying it out loud, but it's true.
There's a book out there, and it's called "Where Are the Customers' Yachts?" It's true.
Right.
Oh, man.
And this is why I actually started Zinnia Wealth, because I don't like the language. I don't like the way people are treating people in this industry. They deserve customer service. They deserve what they, I'm thinking of my own grandparents and my dad. I'm like, I wouldn't want an advisor to tell my dad or my grandparents or anybody, any of my loved ones, no, listen, I wouldn't buy that, or I wouldn't do that in the retirement years when they deserve it the most, when they actually could, because it's going to hurt the advisor's piggy bank. I get riled up for those conversations. And I'm trying to stay very cool right now because they still happen today. When you retire, start spending your money. You are in your go years, not no-go. You're not no-going. You are at the healthiest you will ever be in your entire life moving forward. You better start spending your money because you might not get an opportunity to do so. Think 10 years ago, Randy, people retired and they heard this nonsensical stuff. Don't spend their money. Oh, you want to buy a new car? Go finance it, right? When people just wanted to pay it off. Some of those people died during COVID. Yeah. They retired for 5 years. They never spent their money. Their spouses are alone now, and they still have plenty of money in their frame, right? But they just didn't get to enjoy the retirement because they were so fearful because somebody said they couldn't spend money. And that is not how we roll. If you want an income plan and you want to see how it rolls, if you spend more money your first 10 years in retirement, those go years where you need to get up and go do it before your pains kick in, before illness kicks in, before death kicks in, because we're not promised tomorrow. We'll show you a plan that will probably give you 30 to 40% more income than you thought you could ever have for the next 10 years. And then we can pull back the reins after 10 years. Because after 10 years, you're tired of going on cruises. How many times are you going to go to Alaska? Right? I've watched it. People after 10 years, they're so like, they're like, I don't need this income. I've watched it. I didn't even know this. Yeah. So, long story short, you need to see the plan, and you're not going to feel confident about spending money if you don't see it. And this is what we do. I heard somebody say once, do you want your kids rolling up to your funeral in Porsches and Lamborghinis? No. Spend your money. Spend it. Dang it.
All right, going through this list here, the 7 retirement rules we can break. And we've heard it many times. The longer you wait, the bigger your check. You should wait till 70 to claim Social Security. Okay, but not for everybody, right, Charisse?
Totally. It is interesting over 20 years how Social Security has changed strategies, how we were able to use them, now we can't use them, and how we plan our clients' accounts today versus 10 years ago on Social Security. I truly believe, depending on, right, of course, you guys have to come in, we got to look at all the inventory, what you say, what you need, yada, yada. But on average, 9 out of 10 of the people who walk in this office, I advise one of you collect now. And it's usually the one has a lower Social Security check and let the other one delay most of the time, not all the time, because you have to live past 80. Simple math for it all to count. And what if you don't? You've worked your whole life. Nobody gets your Social Security, that smaller check.
Yeah, can't pass that on.
Yeah, the surviving spouse gets the larger check, the one that delayed it longer. Yeah. So very few far in between do I ever tell anybody to wait till 70 anymore, Randy. And because when I do the math and I actually show it in the income plan says over the next 30 years, it is actually better to take Social Security at 62 or 65. Over and over and over again, my old thoughts have been trumped because of this awesome mathematical software that I've put together. And I know it is interesting. I went, oh gosh, I had that wrong. Right? And so it's just good to see. And then you can make a better decision because you can see when to take it, when not to take it. And the bottom line is, where does your asset and the total amount you saved, what does it look like 30 years from now based on a pessimistic view, right? And nothing's guaranteed. But on a pessimistic view, this is what it looks like. If we take Social Security early, hey, it looks better. Or if we take it later, it looks worse. And some people, it actually does look better. So it's not cookie cutter.
You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. We're going through a list of 7 retirement rules that are okay to break. And these are the things that you're going to see online if you look at retirement in Google. You'll see a lot of this stuff. The 4% rule, spend as little as possible, delay your Social Security until 70. This is the kind of stuff, and you can break these rules. And we would love to sit down with you and do the math for you to see if you should follow them or break them. That's what comes out of a meeting at Zinnia Wealth. Here's our number, 833-368-3680, or the website, zinniawealth.com. Next one is one you and I have kicked around an awful lot. You know, Susie Orman says you need $3 million. Kevin O'Leary says you need $5 million. Fidelity says you need $1.8 million.
Ramsey said $8 million.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so this is you have to have $1 million to retire. And last week, I think you and I talked about this. Only 3% of people have saved $1 million for retirement. Does that mean that 97% of people are miserable in retirement? No. So you see it all the time. You don't have to have $1 million to have a successful retirement.
Yeah, because you have to remember this. Let's say you're working and you are making $100,000 gross, and you're contributing $20,000 to your 401k. So now you're at $80,000, and then you're pouring some money into your healthcare. So now you're really down to $75,000, and then you're paying your taxes. So now you're really down to $60,000. You're really only living on $60,000 when you really break it down that simply, right? Mm-hmm. So now you've retired and you've saved $500,000, for example, and your Social Security and your spouse's Social Security is bringing in $40,000, which is very typical, right? So then to get to that $60,000 net, if that's the amount you need when you retire, the same amount when you're working, if that was truly the case, you only got to pull $20,000 from your $500,000 you've saved. So you're doing good on the 4% rule. And if you take that $500,000 and you divvy it up among different asset classes, you can pull more income from others than maybe just a good old 60-40 portfolio. So it's not about what you saved, it's what you keep, right? And you want to be smart on those strategies, and we don't want it all to be derailed because the stock market goes down, but just understanding and taking inventory and what the output and input is going to be key. And then what is that withdrawal strategy? And you'll find out that a lot of people don't have to save $1 million to retire.
Yeah, it's a sad story that there's a lot of you out there right now that are grinding away in your 60s. You're trying to get to Medicare age 65, or you're trying to get to Social Security age 62, or you're saying, I'm going to go till 67 or 68. And maybe you don't have to be grinding away right now. Maybe you come in and we sit down and the math works for you. And we would love to have that opportunity to talk to you about it. 833-368-3680. All right, going through our list of 7 retirement rules to break. And here's the next one. You must pay off your mortgage before you retire. Not so much with everybody.
Well, you know, that's kind of an old school thought, because think about the mortgages, Randy, back in the day. People had 8, 7% mortgages, 10, 12, right? We're going on language from way back when interest rates were high and you're locked into this 30-year mortgage, right? And so times have changed. Interest rates dropped. A lot of people have 2, 3, and 4% interest rate mortgages. And my question is, why would we get rid of a mortgage that has a 2 or 3 or 4% interest rate? And I know why, right? Because you have been told all your life, don't have a mortgage when you retire. I was just talking to a client about it. Their family's like, you got to get rid of that mortgage. I'm like, yeah, but it's only 3%. Why? You got to cash out your 401ks, pay the tax bill to do that. It makes 0 sense.
Right.
And I said, it's cash arbitrage at this point, right? And it's a psychological decision to pay off your mortgage, but is it a financial decision to pay off that mortgage? And most people can continue to pay your mortgage unless you really bought a big home, you went over your skis on this home, and maybe it is 3 or 4%, and it's just too much. That is a different story. I think 1 out of 100 people come in here, I see that scenario. I mean, it's a very small amount, but you don't have to pay off that mortgage. You really don't. And if you do, what dollars are you going to use to pay it off with? Because you do not want to use a retirement account, because you got to pay Uncle Sam all that money to do that. And if your mortgage is 6, 7, and 8%, you know, I'm going to have a little bit different conversation. Sure. Remember, it's not cookie cutter. Yeah. And it's going to depend on the price of the house and where you're at. And hey, interest rates are supposed to be going down. And so if you have a 5% mortgage and We can get interest rates down. Maybe you refinance it. As long as you don't plan on selling that house in the next 3, 4, 5 years, it makes sense based on the fee to refinance. And if you're going to keep that house, it certainly does, right? So something to think about as well.
Well, there's a saying that we've used here on the show. There's good debt and there's bad debt. And maybe your mortgage is good debt. Maybe your credit cards are bad debt. Maybe your auto loan is bad debt. And so you got to make that decision, and let's handle them a little bit at a time to find out what's going to be right for you.
Right. And don't forget this. If you have a 4% mortgage, but you can put your money in something that's making 5, 6, 7, 8%.
There you go.
You're just growing. So you can pay off your mortgage a different way by just chunking it down.
All right, number 6 on our 7 rules of retirement that you can go ahead and break. Oh, I'm going to use the A word now. Here we go. You should avoid annuities at all costs.
Okay.
Here we go again.
Yes. Can I tell you, Randy, I was that advisor that said, I don't know what an annuity is, and I don't want to know what an annuity is, and I'm not going to touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. I was the loudest human being in that arena back in my day. Until an advisor sent me a book and said, read this book, Sharice. I think this could help your clients. Since then, and fast forward, annuities have changed. You know, some of the most wealthy people are going to annuities, Randy, now. It is crazy. Tax-deferred growth, no fees. You can use that as a replacement to your bond. If I could tell you legally the type of returns we're seeing in our annuities right now, you guys would not believe me. It's because annuities have evolved. That A word has turned into an absolute classy asset class and replacement strategy for bonds that are mediocre now. And if you haven't heard about it and you haven't seen it, I will also say buyer beware. There is a reason why I will only touch 5 annuities in this country out of 1,000. So I'm very teed up and dialed into which ones. And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. And we stay far away from those because I've been down that road. I've used them and I know it works. So as long as you're in the right annuity, no fee that is going to make us a return and a fake index is not what I'm talking about, a real index, then you got something solid. Unfortunately, a lot of advisors aren't selling something solid. And so we sprinkle a little piece of that into our portfolio. So I had a client who came in and he had $1 million. We should put $250,000 in it. And out of all of our accounts, he went, Sharice, how come my annuity made more money than the investment in the market? I went, I told you so. I said, this is my Hail Mary. This saves my butt when markets are only making like 6, 7, and 8. And we just did that on the annuity. He's like, why didn't we put more in? I'm like, because you said I hate annuities. I don't want to talk about them. But I said, I think we need to place it in here just a little bit. And he's like, can we put more in? I went, of course.
Interesting. You know, if we sat on this show and said, we have a stock that has been breaking records every single month, every single quarter, you got to get into this. And people would be calling like crazy. But I can tell you for the last 4 years, every month, every quarter, annuities have been breaking records. And it's because the baby boomers are saying, how do I get income in retirement? This is one of the options. And it's one that a lot of people are jumping into, Sharice.
I had a sweet guy drive from Gainesville come to my office this week. And he was just raving about how amazing these annuities returns. And I always laugh because I know they're going to. And not everybody's making these same returns, right? It depends when you got in the annuity.
Sure.
That's a big part of it. And what was the interest rate? Was the interest rate environment down or up? And interest environments were up, right? When a lot of people got these over the last 4 years. So they're probably the happiest annuity owners under the sun versus people who got them 10 years ago. So times have changed. But I always say this to people. I'm like, I bet you didn't believe me when I told you the potential returns in these. He's like, Sharice, I didn't, but I trusted you. And you were, and I trust you. And that's all that mattered. I just needed you to say, let's go. And it was so cool. He said that. I went, oh, well, thank you. And he's not the first person he's like, I just trusted you. And he's like, I can't believe it. And it is cool to watch because I wish I could have said that about my contracts that were 10 years old, but interest rates were different back then. Sure. Now interest rates are in favor.
All right, rounding out our list here of the 7 retirement rules that are okay to break. The 4% rule, spend as little as possible in retirement. Delay your Social Security, wait till 70. You need $1 million to retire. You should pay off your mortgage before you retire and avoid annuities at all costs. The last one is 65 is retirement age. 65 is when you should retire. Again, not right for everyone, is it?
No. And you know why there's that 65 age, Randy?
I think Medicare, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, I can't afford the insurance. I am older. When you're between the ages of like 59 and 65, you're like, oh, insurance is going to be so expensive. And it can be, right? Depending on what's going on inside your body and stuff like that. But most people who are getting ready to retire, when you just add the insurance to your budget, most people, I want to almost say 9.5 out of 10, they realize, oh, I don't have to wait till 65 for Medicare. I can actually do it now. And we sit you down with an insurance agent who actually sells health insurance and on different platforms. And then they show you the cost and you're like, okay, so for the next 3 years before 65, I actually can retire now. I don't have to sweat bullets and continue to work for the boss I don't want to work for anymore. And I can enjoy life and I can afford it. But the only way people believe us here at Zinnia is because of that income plan we build out. Because we'll show the plan. I'm like, now we got to add in another $1,000 a month for the next 3 years. How does that derail our account value and our plan? And we put it in, and it's no big deal. But it's such a psychological way of thinking, and I get it. Because we've always been taught for all these years, insurance. It can break you, it can make you, it can break you, and it can, right? If you do have it, how much is it going to cost? So you have to understand that you always got to worry about it, but you don't have to worry about it if we put it in a plan and you can see the future of it. And then within a couple of years, you're turning on your Medicare. I mean, I've had people retire, Randy, 10 years before Medicare, and they were still just fine.
Wow. Interesting.
Yes.
Well, 65 is, the classic age. You get the gold watch, you walk out the door, 65. But it's not right for everybody. Maybe yours is a couple of years before or a couple of years after, or right on 65. Let's do the math on your retirement and figure out what works for you. Here's our number and our website. We do this for you at no obligation or no charge. We would love to have a meeting with you and just go through what your concerns are about retirement. Let's get them out on the table. 833-368-3680. Or the better way to do this is just use our website. It's really easy. ZinniaWealth.com, ZINNIA Wealth.com. Click on that gold box that says Complimentary Retirement Consultation. Teresa, that is all the time we have on this one. I'll give you the last word.
All right. Well, check out our social media page where it shows my picture of me doing that hike and then also a picture of my award and all that fun stuff. We're also posting a lot of information on social media and YouTube now. And as usual, live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. The firm only conducts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded from registration requirements. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Insurance products are offered through Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC, Florida license L078655, and Sharice Rivers, Florida license P037744. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, and Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC are affiliated entities. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the podcast and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this podcast is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Any client experience discussed on this show are unique to that client. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities or other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. References to specific investments should not be construed as being past specific recommendations. The returns for various indices discussed in this podcast do not represent the performance of the firm or any of its advisory clients. Returns do not reflect the impact that advisory fees will have on an investment. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. All investment strategies have potential for profit or loss. Different types of investments involve higher and lower levels of risk. There is no guarantee that a specific investment strategy will be suitable or profitable for an investor's portfolio. Historical performance returns for investment indexes and/or categories usually do not deduct transaction and/or custodial charges or advisory fees, which would decrease historical performance results. There are no guarantees that a portfolio will match or outperform a specific benchmark. Investments in fixed income products are subject to liquidity risk, market risk, index rate risk, credit risk, inflation risk, purchasing power risk, and taxation risk. Because bond prices fluctuate continually, their yields change constantly.